What if the next iPhone isn't just another yearly upgrade? What if it's actually the biggest leap Apple has made in years? Today, we're skipping the standard, boring spec sheet to investigate the real story behind the iPhone 17 Pro. You see, the iPhone 17 Pro Max has already become one of the absolute most talked about smartphones in the world. But millions of people are all asking the exact same fundamental question. Is it finally worth upgrading, or is it just another insanely expensive device with a few minor tweaks? Well, we are going to break down everything you need to know about Apple's flagship to find out. So before you drop your hard-earned cash on the iPhone 17 Pro or Pro Max, you'll definitely want to stick with me right until the very end.
Okay, let's dive right into this by asking the exact same question that top tech reviewer Marques Brownlee posed shortly after the phone's initial release. He titled his review of this device, "Paradox in a Box." Now, why a paradox? Well, a paradox is something that seems totally contradictory but might actually be true. And when it comes to the iPhone 17 Pro, we're looking at a device that promises to be this groundbreaking, massive leap into the future of technology, while simultaneously looking and feeling incredibly familiar. So, to figure out whether this paradox is a deal breaker or a straight-up masterpiece, we need to compare what was promised versus what was actually delivered. To really understand this paradox, we first got to look at the immense expectations set by Apple themselves. During their September 2025 launch event, Apple's core messaging basically boiled down to one simple, incredibly bold claim. It's the ultimate Pro. They weren't pitching this as just a good phone for your average everyday user. No, they were aggressively targeting professionals, creators, and power users who demand absolute, uncompromised excellence from the tech they carry in their pockets every single day.
And let me tell you, the world was absolutely listening. Over 25.5 million people tuned into Apple's official introduction video. I mean, just think about that. That is a staggering number of focused consumers, all drawn in by a very specific and ambitious set of hardware promises. When 25.5 million people are watching your pitch, the expectations aren't just high, they are literally astronomical.
Apple painted a picture of absolute perfection to that massive audience. Just looking at their official promises, you can see exactly what they put on the table. They guaranteed a premium aluminum unibody, long-lasting battery life, and a completely new, wildly powerful chip. They highlighted their durable ceramic shield and a scratch-resistant display for maximum protection. And for all the creators out there, they teased an 8x zoom cinematic camera capable of, quote, Hollywood-level effects. It reads like the ultimate tech wish list, right?
But here's where things get super interesting. When we take Apple's slick marketing buzzwords like Hollywood-level effects and the ultimate Pro and compare them directly with the grounded, slightly bewildered reactions from reviewers who are calling it a paradox in a box, a fascinating contrast emerges. Marques Brownlee categorized his experience with chapters like the Pro Paradox and summed it up with, "What a thing." It really highlights the reality that actually living with the device day in and day out is vastly different from watching a beautifully lit, perfectly scripted launch event.
All right, Section 1. Built like a tank. Let's look at the actual hardware reality.
So Apple heavily promoted their ceramic shield and that aluminum unibody. MKBHD distinctly categorized this in his review as being quite literally built like a tank. Every single part has been engineered for durability. Once you hold it in your hand, you notice the edges feel smoother, the body feels stronger, and the overall finish is designed to be luxurious while remaining super practical for daily use. But does that tough premium exterior actually translate to a better everyday experience? I mean, a premium chassis is fantastic, but the real question is how it handles the pressure of heavy, continuous, real-world use.
Which brings us to Section 2, cameras and performance. Let's talk about the power tests. Now, Apple pitches this camera as a tool for literal Hollywood-level cinematic creation. They are heavily highlighting that 8x zoom cinematic camera as a massive leap forward. And this isn't just about snapping a quick photo for social media. It's about incredibly accurate color reproduction for serious photo and video editing. It's about HDR movies where highlights appear insanely bright and darker scenes somehow retain all this impressive detail. Apple is basically telling content creators that this device is reliable and powerful enough to shoot high-end cinematic footage right out of your pocket.
But to see if this actually holds up, top tech reviewers put it straight to the test. Brownlee breaks these massive claims down chapter by chapter in his deep dive analysis. He tests the Pro cameras to see if that 8x zoom really delivers without losing crucial detail. He confirms the physical build is indeed built like a tank. He stresses the performance of that brand new chip to see if it can truly outpace the heavy demands of modern gaming and intense multitasking. And importantly, he drains the big battery to see if Apple's efficiency improvements actually yield longer viewing sessions or if you're still constantly reaching for a charger.
And I love this because it brilliantly illustrates the timeline of tech expectations.
We move from the pristine, perfectly polished launch event, straight into the critical review period, and finally out to long-term ownership. You see, the initial launch in September 2025, that is all about the hype. Late September is the reality check, where reviewers like MKBHD unbox the paradox. But honestly, the most valuable data comes from long-term testing. How does a device that is supposed to be the ultimate pro perform when you finally hit July 2026?
Section 3, 10 months later. Let's look at the long-term review.
We really need to bridge that gap between launch hype and everyday utility. To do this, tech content creator Andrew Clare documented his experience living with the iPhone 17 Pro Max for 10 straight months. 10 months of daily driving, 10 months of replying to messages, editing documents, browsing the web, and genuinely relying on that promised long-lasting battery life. This kind of longitudinal testing is exactly what we need to see if Apple's durability claims, power efficiency, and that incredibly solid build quality actually hold true over time when the sparkly newness finally wears off.
Claire's retrospective really forces us to evaluate if those high-end pro promises actually deliver sustained value. Like 10 months later, do features like reduced power consumption and amazing touch responsiveness justify the massive investment, or do they just fade into background noise? Over 10 months, you realize that everyday utility dictates whether you actually love or hate your phone. Does the refined camera module, the performance under heavy load, and the durability of that ceramic shield hold up after hundreds of charge cycles and daily wear and tear?
So, after seeing both the massive marketing hype from Apple's 25 million view launch and the grounded, gritty reality of long-term testing from leading tech reviewers, the ultimate question remains for you to answer. When you combine the premium materials, the stunning display, and the undeniably powerful internal performance, is it everything you need it to be? 10 months later, did the iPhone 17 Pro live up to your expectations, or is the paradox still in the box? Think about what you prioritize most in your daily tech and let that guide your decision. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking the big questions.